What's up, guys? We are live to talk about UFC Vegas 22. It was a solid event, pretty exciting event. I enjoyed it. Lots of action, lots of finishes, quite a bit of drama, and topped off with a really weird main event with Kevin Holland and Derek Brunson. And we will get to that. But of course, I will start from the first fight of the night. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each fight on the prelims and then each fight on the main card. I'll talk about the fights. I'll talk about what I thought, maybe some potential matchups for these fighters. After any talking points that came up through the night, I will talk about. And then I will also talk about the betting lines for them fights, what the best bets were, and of course, break down the bets I had on each fight as well. So we'll get straight into it, and I will bring up my screen so you guys can see the first fight of the night, which was a banger. And I told you it was going to be a banger. And on my podcast, I almost chose this as the most exciting fight of the night. But the Dawson and Santos fight took the cake for that one. So if I just bring up some graphics here. The first fight of the night was Bruno Silva versus JP Buys. Now, JP Buys was coming in off the Contender Series where he had a solid showing. There was some controversy about the guillotine he won by, but it was a solid show, and he was all over his opponent. And, Bruno Silva is a popular underdog this week, and I bet Bruno Silva at plus 170 on about Monday or something it was, right? When I saw this fight announced, I thought, let me jump into this ASAP, because I looked at the betting lines for this fight, and I saw Bruno Silva was like a plus 180 underdog or something. And I thought to myself, why the hell is he plus 180 against JP Buys? Because JP Buys has no UFC experience. He looks good on the regional scene, but he's fighting largely people who wouldn't get into the UFC. And he has lost before. And he has quit before, So I knew Bruno Silva was a tough guy. I know he's got quite a few losses in the UFC, but they was against top-level competition, right? And there's always something you have to do when you're betting on MMA, is that you shouldn't overrate people who lose against good fighters, but at the same time, you need to acknowledge step downs in competition, because it is a huge thing in MMA, the step down in competition angle, right? So although, it's good, it's probably good practice to not overrate people who consistently lose if they're losing against better fighters, right? It's good to not overrate them in a loss, because at the end of the day, they still did lose, even if they fought a good fighter. But at the same time, a better angle to take is to acknowledge step downs in competitions. So this was a huge step down for Bruno Silva, in my opinion. And I did say that on the preliminary card breakdown, which I put out on my YouTube channel last week. And I said, I think Bruno Silva is going to win the fight. So, Bruno Silva had fought David Dvorak, who I'm pretty high on. He had fought Tagir Ulabekov, who's a solid Dagestani fighter who came into the UFC and he's got good credentials. And he looked good in both them fights, right? There was another fight he fought, Kali Taha, but that was upper weight class. And he looked decent in that fight till he got stopped there as well. So coming up against JP Buys with no UFC competition, who has been beat before twice by stoppage, it was pretty evident to me that I may be betting Bruno Silva here. So then I dug in and done the tape, right? That's what you do. You pick out fights that you think might have some edge on the betting lines. And if you're immersed in the sport like me, you will know that when the lines are released. And then if your bias is confirmed when you watch tape, you pull the trigger. If your bias isn't confirmed, you don't. Or you may even bet the other way. When I watched tape, my bias was confirmed. Bruno Silva is a dog, he's a motherfucker. He's not going to go away. And JP Buys is one of them fighters where if you don't go away, he's going to be in trouble. He's a very good wrestler, but we saw Bruno Silva defend a lot of takedowns from Tagir Ulambekov. And just getting into this fight, Bruno Silva, I thought that JP Buys would probably have some success in round one and then Bruno Silva would pull away. But that's not what happened, man. Bruno Silva put a damn pace on JP in that first round. And he kept that pace up till he knocked JP out in the second round. So I was super impressed with Bruno. I didn't think that he'd just go out there and easily win round one like that. I believe he may have dropped him in round one. Memory isn't the best, but he definitely dropped him more than once. I believe round two was where Actually, I think he did drop him in round 1. And if you're in the chat, live the chat, let me know, say what's up. But I believe he dropped him in round 1 with the spinning back forearm right at the end of the round. I think JP may have dropped to one knee or something there. But either way, he dominated that first round. And talk about dominated round 2. I mean, he stopped him in round 2, and he almost had JP finished before he eventually did finish him. So solid win from Bruno there. And you have to think, Bruno, he's a good fighter. He's a bit of a, I'm not going to say dark horse, you know. He has lost a couple of fights, but he's definitely someone to be wary of in this division, not just because of this fight, but because of how he fought against Ulanbekov, because of how he fought against Dvorak. He hurt Dvorak badly in that first round. And, you know, he's definitely a dangerous fighter, man. So I had 2 units on Bruno Silva at plus 170 here. So that cashed for plus 3.4 units, which is a very good cash for me. I also had Bruno Silva in round 3. So I had Bruno to win in round 3 at plus 2,000 for 0.3 units. And if that 0.3 unit bet cashed, I would have won 7 units, you know, which is ridiculous, right? Like 7 units on one bet is pretty hilarious, especially when you only put 0.3 on it. And, you know, JP only had to last for another 2 minutes. And Bruno, I mean, pretty sure Bruno would have got that round 3 finish. You know, Bruno has got good cardio. JP's a bit of a gasser. So if he didn't finish in round 2, definitely would have got the round 3 finish. But, you know, you can say that about anything, right? If he didn't do this, that would have happened. So it's unlucky. You know, I would have liked to have that plus 7 units from a 0.3 unit bet. But it is what it is. I was happy that Bruno cashed the bet because we still profited heavily on that fight, over 3 units. So that was good. I'll probably go as far as saying that Bruno Silva is probably the best bet on the card. Now, I got bad memory, so I need to go through the whole card in this video, and maybe I'll change my opinion. But you know, plus 170 for just complete domination. I mean, and a stoppage. It's going to be hard to find a better bet than that on the card. And to be honest, it's probably up there with one of the bets of the year. I'd give Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar a shout. Probably Poirier against McGregor a shout because of the odds. But I mean, Bruno Silva, I mean, JP Buys didn't do anything in that fight, like literally 0. So probably one of the best bets of the year there so far. And yeah, I'd like to see Bruno obviously have a step up now. He's got Henry Cejudo in his corner, so that's some back in there. It gives him more notoriety, more of a face, more of a name. And yeah, I'd like to see Bruno against someone who is ranked, of course, now. And JP, he's definitely still a good talent. I'd like to see him fight somebody, you know, not like a quote-unquote veteran, as much of a veteran as Bruno Silva. Maybe they can give him another, you know, like unranked dude, maybe someone on the come up, or maybe a veteran who's obviously falling off, you know, like don't give him these veterans who are still doing their thing like gatekeepers, but, you know, maybe give him someone like, who could JP fight? I don't know really right now, but definitely want to see JP back in the UFC. You know, that was only his debut, and nothing wrong with losing to Bruno Silva because he's a very solid fighter. I still do think JP has a good career in the UFC because he's only 24 years old, but he does need to sort out quite a few things in his game. So the next fight we had was Montel Jackson versus Jesse Strada. And this was a complete domination by Montel Jackson. He had a minus 700 price tag, and, you know, he proved why he had that price tag. I believe he done everything he should have, you know, like minus 700 probably was where he should have been kept at. So on this fight, I had Montel Jackson in a parlay with Gregor Gillespie. Obviously, that unfortunately Gregor Gillespie got cancelled. So it was just a straight on Montel Jackson, which cashed for like 0.5 units. It would have been like 2 units with Gregor, but, you know, we still cashed on that one. I also had Montel Jackson to win inside the distance. That cashed at like plus 3 units, so that was good. And then I had Montel Jackson in round 1 as well. So I went quite heavy on Montel Jackson. You know, the level difference was just extreme here, and you could see it on tape, right? Jesse Strada is one of them kill or be killed fighters as well. That's why I was happy playing the inside the distance prop, you know. But a lot of these times, right, when these fighters are just, the skill gap is so huge, finishes always occur. Now, even if a fighter doesn't usually get finishes, if the skill gap is so huge, usually they will get finishes, you know. So I remember when Ricky Simone fought Gaetano Pirello earlier in the year, and I actually max bet Ricky there at minus 325. I kept him at like 90% chance of winning. So I had like a huge edge on the bookies there, in my opinion. And even though Ricky didn't get, Ricky never gets finishes, right? He always gets decisions. But because the skill level was so evident and so huge, a finish materialized in the second round. And it's the same thing here. By the way, Montel definitely isn't like a decision machine, but he's got quite a few decisions in his last few fights. And, he's gone to decision quite more often than not in the UFC. But because the skill level was so different, the finish came in under 2 minutes. So, Montel did what he needed to do there. He hurt Jesse on the feet once, almost got Jesse out of there. He rolled for like a Dawson or something. It wasn't a great attempt, and Jesse kind of just stood up and looked at him. Montel got back up to his feet and able to drop him again. And this time he done the correct thing. He didn't jump in on the submission. He just picked his shots. He hit him with some solid ground and pound. And the referee did Jesse Strada a favor and stopped the fight. So in regards to Jesse, look, I don't think he's very high level. He lost to Marcos, I believe his first name's Marcos. He lost to Rojo, who recently fought Charles Jourdain in a good back and forth fight there. But Jesse had Rojo in some trouble in that fight, but he did get stopped in the first round. I don't think Jesse is UFC level, in my opinion, but definitely give him another fight, see where he's at. He may prove he is UFC level, or at least fringe UFC level, at least low UFC level. He may prove that. So definitely give him another fight. He stood in short notice against Montel Jackson as like a plus 600 underdog. So you've definitely got to give him another fight, and I'm pretty sure they will. But now we need to see Montel obviously step up against someone. I say give him someone who's got decent wrestling, but not great wrestling. It was quite funny because Michael Bisping on the commentary when this fight was happening said, I don't see any holes in Montel's game. And I mean, anybody who knows the sport, anybody who knows Montel anyway, would know that the hole in his game is the wrestling. Of course, he's only had 2 defeats, Ricky Simon and Brett Johns. They're both wrestlers, right? So his wrestling is the hole in his game. So it's funny when sometimes you hear these commentators say these things, and you're like, you literally you don't do tape, or you just don't have a clue what you're talking about. It happens all the time. And I love all of these commentators. I love Bisping. I love DC. I love Joe Rogan. A lot of people hate on them. I love them all, right? But it is funny when you hear this stuff sometimes, like, come on, like, really, Bisping, like, there's no holes on Montel's game. Like, there's such an obvious hole. It's ridiculous, DC says some mad shit sometimes. Well, so does Joe Rogan, It's like, guys, like, come on, but it's your job. But it is what it is. They got a lot of stuff going on, so they don't have time to watch as much tape as we do, because this is like, for me anyway, this is my life, really. So I have time to do a lot of tape, right? Anyway, that was a good fight. And yeah, I'd like to see both of them, obviously, in another fight in the UFC. The next fight we had was Trevon Giles versus Roman Dalitse. And just checking the chat, MMA Kappa NZ is saying he cashed on Silva too after watching the first round. I regret it not putting a bit on Silva via stoppage. Yeah, man. Yeah. And, just thinking about it, I should have just played Silva via stoppage as well. But I tried to get cute with these things and play like round props. And to be honest, a lot of time I am on the ball with round props. Like even last week, I believe I had Manuel Cape to win in round 2 against Nicolau. And even though it didn't cash, it was close as fuck, So I was happy I played the round 2 as opposed to the inside the distance here. But here I was annoyed I played the round 3 as opposed to the inside the distance. But later on in the card, I was happy I played the round 3. So like it all balances itself out at the end of the day. And I do think them round props can be lucrative. And it's pretty funny because I put out a tweet the day before fight day. And I said, look, don't listen to these old school bettors because, and look, not all of them, a lot of them, you can learn a lot from them. I've learned a lot from them. And when I say old school bettors, I mean like just old school bettors, Billy Waters. Billy Waters doesn't put out much any content really, but like there's content right from people who have been in the sports betting industry for a long time. But with MMA betting, it's completely different. So like you won't really hear too many professional gamblers in other sports like basketball and stuff saying that, there's value on plus 2,000 props, like who to score the first touchdown, who to score the first basketball hoop or whatever you call it. But in MMA, there can be huge value on fighter to win in round 3 or like fighter to win via submission in round 1 and these crazy props. Like there's so much value. So MMA betting, in my opinion, is a completely different game than a lot of other sports, right? Betting on sports. And the thing is most content of professional sports bettors out there is not about MMA. Basically none. There's basically no professional MMA bettors established for 10, 20 years that put out content, because the sport hasn't been around that long, and it's definitely not been popular that long. So all the information you can get on sports betting, right, is from people who are in other sports, and it really doesn't translate. Now, a lot can translate, but a lot doesn't translate. So MMA sports betting is a different game. And like here, even with me, I'm trying to change the game in a way and like put out the realness, which is that you can make money on certain props. There is value on plus 2,000 props and stuff like that, and lots of other stuff, right? That doesn't count in other sports. But yeah, the round props are definitely lucrative. They can be, but obviously you have to have an eye. Most people don't have an eye, unfortunately. But yeah, good cash on Silva. MMA Kappa. Was happy that a lot of people cashed on that. So that's always good when, most of the community cash. But yeah, in hindsight, should have just played by stoppage. But, if JP lasted 2 more minutes, I would have been happy and I would have been cashing the plus 2,000. So I wouldn't be saying that. So it does all balance itself out. But back to the Giles and Dalitse fight now. Giles, another popular underdog this week, and congrats to anyone who was on Giles. So the play I had in here, I put a quarter of a unit on Roman Dalitse to win via decision at plus 400. Look, I was very happy with my bet, man. Going into the judges' scorecards, I thought we were definitely live to get the decision here. Now, I will say that my fight pass was cutting off a couple of times during this fight. So I didn't watch the whole fight, right? But I watched most of the fight. I think it cut off like the last 2 minutes of round 3, but I spoke to someone and they was like, oh, he ended up on top in round 3, and that round 3 definitely could have gone to Dalitse. So look, round 1 was clear Dalitse, and then I think round 2 and 3 were pretty close, right? Now, yeah, this is a weird one. Like, I'm super happy betting Dalitse by decision, but I saw loads of people on Twitter. They're all saying, "Oh, Giles was a great bet here." Like, look, I don't know about that, man. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Look, he was an underdog, right? So if you're playing his money line, then I guess it was a good bet, because it looked like you could lean Giles. Maybe it was a 50-50 decision in the end, and then you got the underdog. So that's good. But if I had a bet on Giles, like, I would definitely be sweating through that whole fight. So, I mean, congrats to anyone who cashed on that. But I was much happier playing a plus 400 number for a quarter of a unit that I thought was super live to get that. On another day, we probably cashed that. But anyone betting Dalitse straight, I would never bet Dalitse straight, man. As a favorite as well, I mean, the fight IQ was so stupid. But the fight IQ was so stupid on Giles' side as well. So, like, this was just a complete stay away fight from me. And I think I made the right decision. Obviously, I still bet on the plus 400 line, but plus 400 is, for a quarter of a unit, is virtually me staying away. I'm probably just getting greedy because I did have a decent read. I was like, look, I think this fight's going to decision, which is not favored to go to decision. I think it is going to decision. And I definitely can see Dalitse getting some top time and winning there. So I'm going to play the plus 400 line. So I'm basically staying away by putting a quarter of a unit on it. But going forward, these two are heavy fades. They would, to be honest, before this fight, these two were heavy fades for me. And it just confirmed my bias. Giles is initiating grappling when he's not winning the grappling. And Dalitse is rolling for heel hooks and getting punched in the face consistently, still rolling for heel hooks. It was pretty hilarious. You kind of could have bet that before the fight. Them weird bookies that have crazy like lines, like will Conor McGregor wear sunglasses during the face-off or something like that, and they give you like plus 500. Like, if they had one that was, will Roman Dalitse roll for over 5 heel hooks? Like, you could have bet that, and cashed pretty easy, because the guy's just a lunatic. Like, I don't know if he's ever got. He's definitely never got a heel hook in the UFC. I think he's got like 4 or 5 heel hooks on his record, which is pretty nuts. So maybe like 3 or 4. And he's only had 9 fights now. So anyway, bit of a shit show of a fight there. Let's move on. We got Leonardo Santos versus Grant Dawson. Now, on my podcast, the Lucrative MMA Betting Podcast. You can get that on Spotify. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe on Google, Apple Podcast. It's all free. Yeah, on that, I give out the most exciting fight of the card, what I think is going to be the most exciting fight before fight day. And this is the one I gave as the most exciting fight. It wasn't the most exciting fight until 4 minutes and 59 seconds of the last round. Then it became the most exciting fight, or at least the most drama. So basically, the bets on that I had on this card was Grant Dawson to win in round 3. And I also had the fight not to go to decision. So it was like 4 minutes and 50 seconds of the third round. And I was like, fuck's sake, man. Like, you had a chance there, Grant. You've been in top position for the last 3 minutes. James Krause said you wanted said you need a finish. Why are you not going for a finish, Because he didn't. And maybe that's because Leo's good on the ground. He didn't want to give him a chance to get up. But James Krause said you need to go for a finish. And he didn't go for a finish until like 5 seconds left of the round. But maybe that was his ultimate plan, right? Maybe he knew he could knock him out with 5 seconds left. Anyway, I had them 2 bets. So I typed out on Twitter, I lost on -1 unit on the fight doesn't go to decision, -0.5 unit on Grant Dawson in round 3. And then I wrote, unlucky not to cash that, but I said, all right, well, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but the round 3 was live from Grant. Oh, well, or something. And as I clicked enter, Grant postures up, smashes him on the chin twice. Leonardo Santos goes out cold, and he hits him 1 or 2 more times. His mouthpiece goes flying. The referee stops it. I was in shock, like I didn't even celebrate. I was just like, wow, fuck, did that really happen? Like I couldn't believe it. So that was very good for me. We cashed the fight doesn't go to decision, and we cashed the Grant Dawson in round 3. I think we got that plus 1,400. So that cashed for like plus 4 units. I only put 0.3 units on it. So yeah, that was huge there. And that was my prediction. Again, on the preliminary card breakdown and on my betting podcast that I put out, I gave my prediction as Grant Dawson via round 3 TKO via ground and pound. So, I mean, spot on there. Leonardo Santos, he put up a good fight in that first round, but, he did tire. He didn't tire as bad as I thought he would. And Grant Dawson tired a little bit more than I thought he would, but he was still able to do what I thought he would be able to do, which was get Santos down when Santos is tired and ground and pound him to a finish. So congratulations, Grant Dawson there. I will say that Grant is a pretty heavy fade for me going forward, depending on the matchup. And I will say that Santos definitely still has life in the UFC. He can definitely still beat some of these prospects. And he actually put up a better showing than I thought he would there. I know a lot of people were on Santos, maybe not betting wise, but a lot of people, they love Santos. They was hoping Santos would win. I didn't think he'd perform as good as he did. Like, it was pretty even going into that third round. I don't remember the scorecards, but I remember James Krause saying you need to finish. So yeah, it was a pretty even fight up until then. I did feel like Grant would pull away in that second round, but he didn't. He didn't really pull away until the last 2 minutes when he able to get him down on the floor. And even then, he didn't do any ground and pound until like the last 5 seconds. So Santos did well there. Just a moment of lapse in his concentration, really. I guess he heard the buzzer, and he definitely could have avoided that knockout, but I was happy to cash them bets. And the last fight we had on the prelim was a banger of a fight, and I knew it would be. This was Marion Renault versus Macy Chiasson. We had another bet on this fight. It seems like I had a bet on almost every single fight on this card. It won't be the same going into UFC 260 next week. There's not a lot of spots I like. Now, when the prop odds are released, maybe I will have more bets, because I have been playing a lot more props recently. I'm just seeing loads of value on the props, and I'm seeing the money lines being fairly accurate. So it is what it is. I don't go out there to play props, but it just so happens that I've seen the value on them. So that's why I've been playing them recently. But anyway, yeah, we had a bet on this, which was the fight to go to decision at -175. So I thought like the -175 was a little bit off. I thought it should be at least -233, which is 70% implied. I didn't think you can say that less than 7 out of 10 times these girls don't go to decision. I thought at least 7 out of 10 times these girls would go to decision. Now, I knew we'd have to come through some hairy moments, because Marion is an extreme finisher. I believe she has every single fight she's won as she has finished, apart from maybe 1 or 2. Check her record. And she's been about for a while. And then Macy, every single fight she's won, even her amateur fights, I believe, she's finished except for like 2, I believe, which was her last, no, except for 1, which was Shayna Young. And then obviously now another one with Renault. But on the flip side, so you would think that these fighters will not go to decision, but you have to dig into it a little bit more than that. On the flip side, just talking about statistics, right? Both of them are super tough. So neither of them have ever been finished, I believe. Go and fact check me on that. But if they have, it's been like, I know Macy hasn't, and I'm almost 100% sure Marion hasn't been finished too. And then when you watch their fights, you see them get cracked, and they're tough as fuck. Now, Eileen Macy in this fight, I really wanted to bet Renault. I just couldn't with the age. I just couldn't with the decline we had seen in the last 3 fights. And I just couldn't with Macy being probably the more vicious girl in the clinch, which Renault seemed to struggle with against Pennington. So, that's a factor of why I didn't bet Renault here, although I did want to bet Renault. So I just bet the fight to go to decision. And obviously we came through some hairy moments, but I knew we would do. Marion's tough. I knew Marion would get hurt. Marion got her nose broken and still didn't get stopped. So it's one of them things where even though it may have looked close, it's like it still didn't happen. And if it was that close and it still didn't happen, how often does it get that close and not happen? Or do you know what I mean? Like, how often does it even get that close? It was kind of like Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder last week. Like, it looked like it got really close to getting stopped, right? And she still couldn't stop her. So, like, how often does it get that close anyway, right? And then if it does, how often does she stop her from there? She didn't do it that time. Exact same thing here. Macy Chierson, it was close. She almost stopped it, but she still couldn't stop it. So, you have to kind of take a step back sometimes and go like, even though it looked close to being stopped here, like, was it really that close? Because she still couldn't stop it. And maybe I have to look on the other side. Wow, it got really close to being stopped here. Maybe did I get off the hook a little bit? Marion Renault's never been stopped, so I don't really think I got off the hook. But yeah, I knew I would have to come through some adversity, and we did, and we cashed that bet. Renault, that's a 4-fight losing streak here now. She's not going to get cut by the UFC. I mean, maybe, but she's a name in the UFC. For me, she is anyway. She's old now, though. Maybe it's time to start hanging it up. But let me tell you something. Marion definitely can still win, right? She's fighting youngster like Macy, but there's definitely winnable fights here for us. And Marion is a solid litmus test for anyone who comes into the UFC who's thinking they're just going to walk into division. Marion's a solid test here. In regards to Macy, look, she's still a fade for me going forward. She looked good in that fight. I definitely will say she looked good, but she's fighting Marion Renault who's 43, so I don't take too much away from that. Anyone who can, has a decent wrestling game, I'm backing her against Macy all day. I'm not sold on Macy, is basically what I'm trying to say. And we'll get onto the main card now. And it started off with a pretty funny fight. This was the free money fight. Tai Tuivasa versus Harry Hunsucker to go under 1.5 rounds. That's free money. And they posted it as something ridiculous, like minus 150 when it came out. Then it got bet down to minus 250, which was still free money. There's free money in MMA, man. There really is. I'm not sure you get that in other sports. I'm almost certain you don't get it in other sports. I don't know other sports, but I don't think there's ever, like, I know for a fact, like I've read a lot of books and I've spoke to a lot of people. I've watched a lot of videos, and the lines are way more accurate in other sports, right? This is free money under 1.5 rounds. Like Harry Hunsucker had never been out of the first round. And now what? He's going to go out of the first round now when he's fighting Tai Tuivasa, who's got quite a few first-round knockouts, and he's on a higher level than him. And he's been fighting high-level guys like Junior Dos Santos. So you're taking the piss. Minus 250. Free money. That's a max bet there. It should have been, right? And before you start getting mad at me, you can put max bets on props. You can bet a lot of money on props. Let me tell you that now. Every book is different. Okay, so maybe your bookie doesn't let you, but there's this thing going around where you can't bet a lot of money on props. I'll show you some bet slips which prove you can bet a lot of money on props. Anyway, I wouldn't max bet a prop though, because because other bookies are a bit dodgy. So because I have a service, I don't max bet props, only money lines. But anyway, that was free money in my opinion. Minus 250. I mean, the implied probability of that is nowhere near how much that would have happened in real life, right? So anyway, Ty comes out there, and this was another one where my fight pass cut off. But Ty comes out there and knocks him out in under 1 minute. There's not much to say here, guys. Harry Huntsucker is not UFC level, and yeah, I mean, I don't care if we don't see Huntsucker in the UFC again. But he came in on short notice for that, right? So if so, definitely give him another fight. Give him another paycheck. Give him some notoriety. Give him some fame in his town. Get him a couple chicks that see him watch fight for the UFC. You know, let him have a good time. I don't know if he's got a girlfriend or something. If not, then yeah, let him go hard with the UFC fame. But he's going to lose his next fight, you know, and then he's going to be out of the UFC. But definitely give him another paycheck. Shout out to Harry Huntsucker stepping up on short notice. And shout out to Ty. We're going to have to see Ty against, you know, another decent fighter. Ty is not super high level, but shout out to Ty. That was a great knockout. He did well there. And I wanted to hear what Ty said. I don't know if anyone in the chat knows, like post-fight, Ty said something in his post-fight interview, but I couldn't hear it because my fight pass kept cutting off, as I said. So fight pass needs to sort it out, man. I hate fight pass so much, but I love the concept of it, but I hate it so much. It's so shit. Like, it's always fucking up. If you want to watch a Tai Tuivasa fight, you type in Tai Tuivasa perfectly, right? His name. And he's like the 10th fight down on the list. Like Adrian Yanez fights will come up before Tai Tuivasa's fights. You have to scroll down to like the third page to get the first Thai fight. Like, it's fucked up. You'll type McGregor versus Poirier, yeah, and they'll bring up like Gaethje versus Khabib, and then like Tony versus Gaethje, and then like 10 other random fights, and then there'll be Poirier versus like Khabib, and then Poirier McGregor is like the 15th fight. It's ridiculous, and there's many other things wrong with it anyway. Anyway, the next fight was Adrian Yanez, Gustavo Lopez. Look, Adrian Yanez, one of the talking points of the whole card. Adrian came out, put on a show, dropped Gustavo Lopez more than once, and ended up finishing him in the third round. It's always good when you see fighters get third round finishes when the opponent is not extremely gassed, which Gustavo wasn't. It was just a clean knockout in round 3. That knockout could have happened in round 1 or round 2. But he got it in round 3, which shows that his cardio is still there, his power is still there, his timing is still there. Everything is still there in the third round, right? Because he didn't knock out an opponent who was falling over himself like Edmund Shabazian or Louis Cosce, right? So he didn't just get a fighter who cardio gassed and then stopped him. He actually stopped a fighter who was who was in shape. You know, his cardio was still there, but he still got the finish in the third round. So that's something that's very telling for Yanez, and that's something we can use going forward. We know that he's always live for the finish, even in the last round, or at least in the third round, you know, when he's in 3-round fights. He largely dominated Gustavo Lopez there. Now, on this fight, I had the over 1.5 rounds at minus 150. Happy with that bet. He dropped him at with 20 seconds before the over 1.5 round mark. So I was a little bit sweaty on that. But at the end of the day, I knew Gustavo was tough as fuck. And I knew that the power of Gustavo would deter Yanez a little bit. I said this all on my I said this on my breakdown to members on the site, because this wasn't a fight that I talked about pre-fight on YouTube. But I did think that Gustavo's power would deter Yanez more. Yanez has got one of the best chins I've ever seen. Let me tell you that now. I know these are small guys, but Yanez has got one of the best chins I've ever seen. He takes clean strikes and he just walks forward and laughs. I've never seen him stumbled. I've never seen him rocked. And I've seen Gustavo Lopez get some of the worst knockouts I've ever seen, I've ever watched, right? And maybe it's recency bias because I recently taped it, but I've seen 2 knockouts from Gustavo Lopez, which are like one of the worst knockouts I've ever seen. So I know he's got extreme power, and Yanez took clean shots off him. Make no mistake, you know. I know a lot of people like to say Yanez is like the Matrix and he never gets touched. He got touched a lot in that fight. He's got solid head movement, but because he's got that head movement, he gets hit, right? It's weird. It's like a catch-22. Like, he's got solid head movement, so he moves out of the way of a lot of punches. But because he uses his head movement a lot, as opposed to like stepping away at range and trying to not get hit, he just tried to move his head. He does get hit a lot. And he got hit quite a few times in that fight, and he just fucking walked forward. There was one time where he looked half rocked. He kind of acknowledged it. He was like, okay, and he carried on moving forward. But goddamn, I do believe that definitely made Yanez not pressure as much as he did, like in the third round. So I do think my read there was still correct, but I did think that Gustavo would probably deter him more. But at the end of the day, it was a third round knockout. So, I guess he deterred him a little bit. I have seen Yanez swing a bit more wildly in other fights, and not wildly like his technique, but a little bit more with reckless abandon, obviously still with great technique. Now, his pressure was still the same in every fight. He hasn't changed his pressure in regards to footwork and cutting off the cage. But yeah, I feel like the read was solid there. And that's why I bet that over 1.5, and we cashed that. So that was good. The third round knockout from Yanez. And now Gustavo Lopez, I would like to still see him in the UFC. I know he's lost 3 fights in a row now. I believe it's 3 fights. No. He won his last fight, didn't he? So he made his debut against Merab. He got dominated there. And then I think he won his last fight. Yeah, he did. Didn't he get a stoppage in his last fight, I believe? And then he lost to Yanez. So yeah, we'll definitely see him again. He's a good little fighter. He's a good little fighter. Yanez is just a level above there. And Yanez, yeah, man, I'm very excited to see who he fights next. So Yanez, he's got solid takedown defense, but I am worried about if he gets put on his back. I can't really remember if I see him got put on his back on tape when I was doing tape for this fight. But I will say that Gustavo Lopez, I've seen him use wrestling a lot. And in this fight, he basically never used it. I think he went for 1 or 2 takedowns and he couldn't get them. But he didn't use wrestling a lot in this fight. So, yeah, it's a bit silly. Look, he went for 1 takedown. You can see here where my cursor is. So he went for 1 takedown, but maybe he should have gone for some more there. But definitely Yanez is definitely a solid prospect, and I can't wait to see who he fights next. The next fight was by far the best fight of the night. I mean, no one can deny that. We had Cheyenne versus Montserrat Ruiz. This fight was amazing. Like, I'm just so happy I was able to witness this fight. The skill, the technique, the tenacity, the wrestling game of Ruiz. It was amazing, guys. And this is why it's the best sport in the world. So Montserrat... Okay, Montserrat Ruiz comes out there and just spams head and arm throws like she does in every single one of her fights that ever exists on the net that I watched. And Cheyenne still couldn't defend them. Now, obviously they're hard to defend, okay? I don't want to completely shit on Cheyenne, but I mean, even before the fight, right, pre-fight press conference, Cheyenne Bays was saying all she does is spam these stupid headlock throws. She said she had someone in the gym to mimic her. She said that I myself have been mimicking her. I've been watching tape. She knew 100% what Montserrat was going to do, and she still couldn't stop it. Montserrat's like a little Khabib out there, Khabib retires, Montserrat gets signed to the UFC. I don't think that's a coincidence, So anyway, Montserrat goes out there and just dominates Cheyenne for 3 rounds. Cheyenne's the second biggest favorite on the card after Montel Jackson. And it's a very embarrassing look for Cheyenne to get beat the way she did, because Montserrat's not a great fighter. But that head and arm throw is legit. She got a stoppage with it the fight before she went to the UFC, and it is legit. I know people want to take the piss out of it, and even I'm half taking the piss out of it, right? You probably might not be able to understand my dry English humor, but I'm taking a piss when I'm saying this was a great fight and that she's a mini Khabib, right? But I'm not taking a piss now when I say that it is a legit technique. I mean, like, I've seen her do it to multiple fighters, and then she does it here. Look, if she gets in the top 10 of the division, is she going to be able to do it to them? Yeah, okay, obviously not. But it doesn't mean that it's just complete bullshit. Like, it's won her most of her fights, and it won her this fight, with ease, even though Cheyenne knew that it was going to happen pre-fight and during the fight, and she still couldn't get out of it. And then when she was on bottom, she'd getting completely dominated, couldn't get out of it at all. So, look, it's obviously a solid technique, and just probably can get a couple wins in the UFC, but That's all she really has. So if you can defend that, you're going to win. So, I mean, not much to say about these two guys. Yeah, Montserrat, we'll see her again, and Cheyenne, we'll see her again, and it is what it is. They're both lowish level women, but that was definitely a good fight to watch. It was entertaining, put it that way. And I'm being serious. It was actually entertaining. All right, the next fight. And I actually did have a bet on that last fight. Cheyenne Bays. I had Cheyenne Bays to win via submission at plus 1,600. A couple of my members got it up to plus 2,100. So, I just tipped kind of the lower end. But I put a quarter of a unit on it. So, I mean, almost nothing there. This was my read, right? My read was like damn near spot on, except for one huge thing. My read was that Montserrat's going to be initiating the grappling consistently. She's going to be going for the head and arm choke, so head and arm throw. So Cheyenne's either going to be able to defend it and will be in the grappling realm, and she can take her back, or if she gets taken down with it, she'll be able to get out of it and then get top control or take her back. Now, she did that a couple of times, right? And I thought if that happened, then the submission would be live. If you remember the end of the first round, she escaped with it. She escaped from that head and arm hold with like 10 seconds left, and she took Montserrat's back, right? So like the read was there, but I just didn't think that Montserrat, I thought Cheyenne would be able to escape it way more than that, right? She basically escaped it like twice only. And even then it was like with 10 seconds left into the round one. And then it happened again in round two. There was like 20 seconds left. She escaped him through elbows. So like my read was like almost perfect in regards to Cheyenne being able to escape, and then she'd still be in the grappling realm. She wouldn't disengage, or she would have the chance to not disengage and be in an advantageous position. It happened twice, but it happened way too late at the end of the 2 rounds, right? I think she won the second round on the judges' scorecards because she escaped and landed elbows, after being dominated for 4 minutes. So, the read was spot on, but obviously I thought she'd be able to escape it way more than she did. I didn't think it'd take 4 minutes. So but a quarter of a unit at plus 1,600, I literally make that bet 10 out of 10 times. So it is what it is. Not with Cheyenne Bays, maybe, because obviously she can't make that. She can't escape, but you know what I'm saying. So the next fight, Song Kidon versus Max Griffin. Now this bet is like, the bet that I had on this fight was, so this was the worst read of the whole card I had. I had this fight going to decision, and I had Max Griffin winning by decision at plus, what was it? Plus 130, right? I just really thought this fight would go to decision. Like if Max won, Max knocks him out. I don't have much to say about this. I just did not see Max knocking Song out. Song's durable, man. I know you won't think it from that fight, but Song is durable as fuck. Watch his fights. Song is durable. The only time he's been stopped is by Brad Riddell, who is an elite kickboxer, and that was from body shots, right? You don't see Max rip into the body. That was from a beautiful body shots, right? Watch that Brad Riddell fight. And then he got stopped by a head kick from Israel Adesanya. So like Israel is a huge middleweight. So like, look, Song is tough, but fuck, man. Max, like, that was ridiculous. He came out like Ngannou, like he hit like a truck. Even when he hit him before he stopped him, you could see Song's eyes go wide. So congrats to anyone who bet Max. I was going to bet Max straight, but I didn't like when I taped it was like minus 180. I didn't really like minus 180 on Max. I mean, it's a pretty chalky number when I thought Song can hurt Max, right? And like, I didn't know if Max would gas if he got the takedown. So I was just expecting a wrestling clinic from Max, but he just knocks him out in the first round, man. So look, congratulations to Max. Terrible read there for me. And yeah, not much to say about that one. Song is kind of like half on his way out of the UFC now, I guess. I mean, doesn't have many wins in the UFC, but he's still dangerous. But he's nothing special. Max Payne is on a bit of a run now. He's beat that Brahimaj in his last fight, which he had a bit of hype behind him. And now he beats Song Kinong. So, yeah, solid. Well done. That was the co-main event. Not a great co-main event, but I mean, it delivered. And then just catch up with the chat because Ayub Ali is asking what my unit size is. Right now, it's $200. I did once upon a time have unit size of $500, but for a few reasons, I moved it down to 200. I took a lot of money out of my bankroll to live on. This is definitely not practice what you preach. I wouldn't say this to anyone, but my bankroll was pretty large. So it was, if I had $500 unit sizes, you can tell my bankroll's pretty large. I was doing like 2% of my bankroll there. So I moved it down about 4 months ago to $200 because I've took decent amount of my bankroll out to live on because that's what I'm living on. So anyone watching this, do not do that, okay? But you probably don't have the same bankroll as me starting up. Most people won't, right? They'll have much less than that. So if you are listening to this, do not take money out of your bankroll, all right? If you have to, you have to. I have to because I had to live on it, right? But what I would suggest is obviously keep working your normal job, whatever you do, earn money from that, live with that, and any money you have in your bankroll, just keep winning units. And as long as you are winning, you can keep increasing your bankroll quarterly, 6 monthly, yearly, whatever you want to do. I don't really know how, you want to, like when you want to increase it. Some people increase it every 6 months. Some people increase it every 3 months, every year. I would suggest at least leaving it to quarterly. Obviously, don't change it every event because I think on betmma.tips, where I'm third-party tracked and everyone in the MMA community should be, I think they have like a section where it says how much you would be up if you tailed me. But they do that with increasing or decreasing your bankroll after every event. And I don't suggest that. I think you should at least wait quarterly. So like see how much money you earn in the quarter. If you've earned so many units, then you increase it by the percentage you've earned. If you have lost units, you decrease your unit size by the percentage you've earned. But even then, I think quarterly is probably still not long enough. Maybe at least 6 monthly. Some people even wait the whole year before they increase it. But then there's an argument where you're leaving money on the table. So there's no real rule behind that. But I would say definitely don't do it every event. But I would say at least quarterly and probably 6 monthly is a good length to aim for. And then there's also another conversation where people increase it once they've reached a certain amount. So once they've got their bankroll up by like 50 units, then they increase it, right? Or once their bankroll decreases by 50 units, then they decrease it. So there's many ways you can play it. But anyone who's listening, try not to take money out of your bankroll. Try and grow that over time. But I grew mine over a long time and then I took some out. So, Ayub, you are legit and transparent. Keep it up, mate. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. This game, this betting game is full of scammers and scumbags at the end of the day, just trying to take people's money or just lying for clout. That's the reason I want to be transparent. And why not? I've got nothing to hide. It is what it is. I'm making money off it. I'm third-party tracked on BetMMA. I've been winning since October 2019 on there and longer previously. So there's nothing really to hide, man. Ayub saying his unit size went out the window in the Yanez fight. I had 10K on him. Easiest 5,700 I've made this year. Hey, congrats, bro. He looked like a huge favorite. So well done, bro. Yeah. I mean, I get what you mean. There's some fights, right, where like you're like, fuck units, like even if you have a max bet 10 units or something, you're like, this is not enough, and sometimes it's not enough. And look, I've been speaking about this for a while and we can get into the weeds, right? And I could talk about this shit for hours. I love talking about this stuff, but there is an argument that you should put 100 units on the line if there's enough value, right? So like I capped my max bets at 11 units, right? They used to be 10, but I capped them at 11 because BetMMA has 11 as the max. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'll just keep it 11, right? And so people can tail. But in reality, like if there's a fight where I see ridiculous amount of value on, why not put 50 units on that? Now, I'm being serious now. 50 units is a bit too much because anything can happen in MMA. As I said earlier in the stream, MMA is a crazy sport. So if you do put 50 units on the line, then what's going to happen is that an eye poke might happen. And like you put 50 units on Peter Yan and he does an illegal knee, right? The bet was good, but you fucked up now because you lost 50 units when you should have won that bet, right? So MMA is mad. So in regards to that, yeah, definitely don't be putting 50 units. But man, if you want to put 30 units on a bet, if you really think like it's a lock, let's say, and it's got huge value on the line, then man, who am I to tell you no? Because I'm not really there to tell you no, right? Now, I think anything above that is probably a bit excessive because of what I just said. If you do anything over 30 units, then you only need 3 crazy outcomes for you, like the Peter Yan knee or a legal eye poke for you to lose that, even if it's a great bet. So, yeah. Anyway, we spoke a lot about that. Wizard of Oz is saying, Ayub, good spot, solid spot, man. He looked like a huge favorite out there, and Gustavo had nothing for him, really. Right, the next fight was the main event, so the stream will be over soon. And thanks for everyone who's been watching thus far. We've got Kevin Holland versus Derek Brunson. Now, this is fucked up because I really wanted to bet Brunson here. You will see, if you just listened to my podcast last week, I said that, look, Brunson's path to victory is clear as day here. Anyone can see it who watches tape. You don't even need to watch tape. Just remember in their fights, you can kind of tell, right? You can kind of tell Brunson had an easy path to victory with the wrestling. Kevin Holland can't stuff a takedown to save his life, and he's not really got much on bottom either. Brunson, solid wrestler, and he's decent top control. It's an obvious win for Brunson. Now, Brunson's chin issues, I did say, was a little bit overstated, but he has still been knocked out in the first round like 5 times, right? And I said on my Twitter, I was like, look, this is a fight where I think there's value on Brunson, and I think if you're betting, you should be betting Brunson, but I've just got a feeling Kevin Holland's going to knock him out. So I probably got caught up with the hype, or maybe it was just tape. Maybe I saw Kevin Holland knock out Buckley. Maybe I saw Kevin Holland have solid, speed and that solid laser precision right hand that he has. And maybe I saw Brunson get knocked out a few times by Jacare and stuff like that. And maybe that's why I thought Holland might win. Or maybe it's because I did get caught up with the hype. Who knows? At the end of the day, I passed on this. So I didn't have any bet on this because of that reason. But I'm kicking myself because I knew that Brunson was the side to be on, right? And it's kind of like that next week, just thinking about it. Like, I kind of feel like Stipe's definitely the side to be on, right? Like, he has to be. But I just feel like Ngannou's going to knock him out. But that's the exact same here. So am I going to learn my lesson here? Or am I just going to pass next week? Or am I going to go against the lesson I've learned here and actually bet on Ngannou? At the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter because they're both completely different fights. And as I said, shit always, if you're in it long term like me, stuff always kind of pans out. So even though I believe that Kevin Holland would get the knockout here, but I thought Brunson was the right side, even though I feel like Stipe's the right side, but I feel like Ngannou's going to get a knockout, doesn't mean the same thing that happened in this fight is going to happen in that fight. So Ngannou probably will get a knockout next round, next week, because it always pans out in the end, right? So what I was thinking didn't happen this week, so it probably will happen next week. Obviously not, but who knows? But yeah, it's good to don't get carried away with, what you think is going to happen, the feeling you have, as opposed to what you actually see in tape, right? At the end of the day, we always have to go back to tape. We have to, that's the only thing we have to go on. All the other stuff is such a little percent, maybe like 5%. So like, how they look. Obviously, how they look on the scales can be decent, but a lot of times you see, like McGregor looks like shit on the scales every single time he fights at 145. Probably the best run at 145 of all time, maybe even better than Max Holloway. He beat Max Holloway. So, like, you can't really always go on what people look like on the scales, right? But that is probably a decent indication. Better than the others, which are interviews, I don't know, just, all that outside of the octagon stuff, right? You have to go with what you see on in tape. Tape is the thing that should make up the bulk of your capping ability, right? It should go at least 80% of at least 80% of the information you take in when you're deciding who to bet on should be from tape. The other 20% can be the bullshit, right? Because it can help, right? How they look on the scales, if they've been off for a long time, if they've had injuries, the age, the age and stuff, that is quite, it does matter quite a lot. But really, tape is the basis, is the concrete, is the heart of what you should be looking at when you're making a bet. But yeah, in regard to this fight, Kevin Holland was very frustrating. Exactly like Wizard of Oz is saying in the chat. He's saying Holland was very frustrating. I took a little flare on him by KO in the second. Brunson usually gets stopped when he gets dropped like that, but he held firm. Yes. And in the second was when Kevin Holland had his only moment of the fight. So you don't hate yourself there. It was a good read that, he had his only moment of the fight when you had the bet on him. But yeah, as you say, Brunson, he held firm. He did, man. And it's not like he was out on his feet. It's not like it was he definitely got hit. But I watched the replay today. When I was watching it live, I thought it was worse than it was. Brunson, I guess he was momentarily stumbled. And Brunson's a bit of a weird guy. Like, he falls over a lot and like he'll fall backwards. And he's not very, doesn't look like he's got very good balance on his feet. He'll slip over and shit like that. He's a bit wild, even when he's not being wild. And yeah, he hurt Brunson, but it wasn't nothing crazy. Brunson easily went back in for the takedown, got his leg up, and then got him to the ground. So Kevin Holland, I did a tweet about this, and I'll stick to this. Very, very embarrassing look by Kevin Holland, talking constantly in between rounds. Now, look, if you're in the round during the fight, do what you want. Like, I'm not going to say anything about that, right? Like, because you're trying to get into your opponent's head. Maybe that's how you feel loose. It's fine, But in between rounds, he did not shut up. Literally, like in between rounds, he spoke more than in the round. He did not shut up. He was just talking to Khabib. It just seemed like he wants to go viral. It seemed like he was just playing on it. And he didn't even take a breath in. You need to breathe in a cage fight. It helps your CO2 max. It helps your cardiovascular system. It helps you calm down. It helps you get air to your lungs. It drops cortisol. Everything good. Like, how can I put this? Focusing on your breathing only has positive effects, especially in a fight. So if you're talking, like he wasn't even talking and then like breathing and then saying something, like he was just brrr, 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 like just like a jackrabbit. Like, shut up, mate. Like, focus on your breathing, man. Like, I know you want to be a viral superstar or something, but it was a bad look from Holland, man. And I don't want to disrespect the guy, but that was a terrible look. And, I think it was Luke from Sparring with Reality Betting. Go and check him out. He's a sharp guy. He posted on Twitter like this little meme or this little GIF, people getting angry. And he was like, hardcores when they see Kevin Holland talking while losing a fight, right? And I was like, oh, damn, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I was getting angry because Kevin Holland's talking. And even me talking about it now, you can probably see me getting a little bit riled up. But it's not really like that he was even... No, it definitely is probably because he was losing. But just the fact that in between rounds, you're not even focusing on your breathing and you're not letting your coaches speak to you. That's what it was, right? Even if he was winning and he was doing that, it still would have been a bad look, in my opinion. I just don't understand it, mate. Like, even at least the breathing, like focus on your breathing in between rounds. Like, what are you doing? Fuck, man. I don't know. No, I don't know what to say about that one. Brunson went out there and did what we all know he could easily do. Took Kevin Holland down. And anyone who was on Brunson, solid bet. Very solid bet. I'm kicking myself I'm not on Brunson. But because it was a very, very good night for me, I'm not, it didn't hurt that much. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird fight to talk about, man. Like the talking point was obviously Brunson's wrestling I've touched on, and Kevin Holland just completely just like talking, just non-stop and just not showing up. Wizard of Oz is saying, you're right, it looked worse than it was. I thought Brunson wouldn't implement wrestling early and then get caught. Nearly had it. Yep, unlucky. He's saying very embarrassing from Holland. I thought he'd stop talking to. Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. And he came out with a video after saying that, oh, this is just me. I'm never going to change. If you don't like it, suck it. But it's not about that, bro. Like, you can still speak in between rounds if you really want to do it in between rounds. Like, you can do it during the whole fucking round, 5 minutes if you want. But like, if you also really want to carry on in between rounds, at least say one sentence and then focus on your breathing, listen to what your coaches say, and then you can carry on talking shit for the rest of the rest between round, but not for the whole minute. Stand up like, Khabib, Give me wrestling advice. You got to give me wrestling, man. And Khabib's just there kind of laughing, not even really replying, you know, like not like he's laughing. He's like, yeah, like he's saying a couple of things, but it's not like they was engaging in conversation. It was a real good riveting conversation, you know, that they was going back and forth. There was a couple times, and Wizard of Oz is touching on it now. There was a couple times when his coaches actually said to him, like, Kevin, like, listen to me, or something along them lines. Maybe not verbatim, but he was like, Kevin, like, we need to do it. And then Kevin's like, yeah, like kind of ignoring him. And then there was another round, which I'm not talking about this one because people are going to correct me, but there was another round where Kevin's like, I hear you, which was just before the last round. But even earlier, it was like the second or third round, his coaches are like, oh, this. And Kevin was basically just like, yeah. And then he carried on talking to Khabib. Like, you know, that's the sort of shit that is just, it's embarrassing. I don't care if you say this is my personality, bomb. There's no excuse for not focus on your breathing at all in between rounds, and then not listening to your coaches, or not even allowing your coaches to get off any advice, right? Now, if you want to say that that's your personality, then okay, sweet. That's your personality. All good. But in my opinion, that's an embarrassing look. And you can have your personality and you're allowed to do that. And I can have my opinion on your personality in that moment. You know, I love Kevin Holland's personality. There's nothing against Kevin Holland, but in that moment, especially when you're losing, for that 1 minute, when you don't listen to your coaches, you don't let them get a word in, and you don't focus on your breathing in a 5-round fight, then in my opinion, which I'm allowed to have, you're embarrassing there. That's embarrassing. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, because I don't want it to seem like I'm shitting on Kevin, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, I'm talking straight facts there. Jamai Khan is saying, I will never bet on Holland again. It's one thing to lose, but the dude didn't even fight for our money. It's one thing to talk shit during the fight, but it got old. Yeah, it gets old when you're getting your ass whooped, right? For sure. You know, and it's not even that he was talking to me. It's just the in-between rounds thing. I'm not going to go over it again, but during the fight, do what you want. But it's the in-between rounds really was like, what are you doing? To me, anyway. But yeah, man, Kevin Holland, bro, like, it's not a great fighter to bet on, especially if he's fighting a fighter who's got decent wrestling, and Brunson's got actually above average wrestling. So yeah, so that's it, guys. That's the card. So solid card, man. I mean, every card is solid in my opinion. I love all the cards, you know. Now we've got quite a few cancellations at UFC 260, but I still hope it's going to be a good card. I'm hoping that the Stipe fight still stays on it. I'm pretty sure it will. That's going to be an absolute banger of a fight, you know. Even that fight alone is worth a pay-per-view. So although Volkanovski got cancelled, I believe Shane Young or Morales got cancelled. I believe Kama Worthy versus Jamie Mullarkey is going to get cancelled. Even though them fights got cancelled, we still got the big one. We still got Stipe versus Ngannou, the rematch. Who do you think is going to win in that fight? Hit me up in the chat. That's a tough one to call. All the betting, all the hardcore bettors are really going to be on Stipe. I don't know if I can do it. I might look at some props to make some money. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, that's it for the stream. I will be back in a couple of days with my preliminary card breakdown, most likely for the UFC 260 card. So definitely check that out. Get my thoughts on the prelims. And then I will also be uploading my lucrative MMA betting podcast, possibly earlier in the week now, if I get tape done a bit earlier. So definitely look out for that. And as always, if you want to sign up to the service, we won 60 units last year, which is a pretty huge unit win. We're at plus 19 units for this year. And, you know, I'm hoping to do the same again. I'm hoping to beat last year, of course. If you want to sign up, just go to my website, lucrativemmabetting.com, long-term winner, all of that stuff, third-party tracked, and you will make money following me betting on MMA. So that's all I got to say. Sleaze Nation is saying, great show. Thanks for that, Jamie. Yes, I appreciate that, brother. Sleaze is the one who's top on the leaderboard on Bet MMA. So everyone go and check Sleaze out. It doesn't have much content out there, but shout out to Sleaze, man, because he's at the top of the leaderboard on Bet MMA. So that's not easy to do, you know. Then we got UFC 99. Brunson should never have been the underdog. Exactly. Definitely shouldn't have been the underdog, man. Of course not. Of course not. Appreciate the stream. I'll try and wake up earlier for the next one. Okay, brother. I don't know exactly where you are. I'm in New Zealand right now, so it's a little bit weird because we're on a different time than most of the world. You know, America and Canada are pretty similar. We're like awake when most of the world is sleeping. So at the moment, I don't even know what the time. At the moment, it's 10 past 12 where I am. 10 past 12 p.m. So I'm just about to hit the gym probably after this. And yeah, thanks for everyone for watching. I'll get out of here now, and I will be back in the week. Respect.